While being served by a waitress, Millionaire froze upon seeing her ring, the same one he had given to his beloved before she disappeared 25 years ago. Anthony Caldwell sat alone in a small, unassuming diner in a town far from the fast-paced world he was used to. His business trip had brought him to this quiet, almost forgotten place, and for a moment, he welcomed the stillness, the chatter of locals, the hum of the old ceiling fan, and the clinking of silverware provided a strange comfort. It was a sharp contrast to the noise and pressure of New York City, where his life usually unfolded in boardrooms and skyscrapers. He absent-mindedly stirred his coffee, staring at the swirling liquid as if it held answers to the questions he had long stopped asking. The past 25 years had been a blur of deals, mergers, and power plays. He had built an empire, but at what cost? The ghosts of his past haunted him, but none more than the memory of Sophia. Sophia. Her name alone was enough to send a wave of regret and loss washing over him. She had disappeared from his life suddenly, without a trace, just days after he had given her the engagement ring. It was the kind of love story that should have ended in happiness, but instead, it had become a mystery that never left his mind. A movement from the corner of his eye snapped him out of his thoughts. A young waitress approached his table, a warm smile on her face and a pad in her hand. "Can I get you anything else?" she asked politely, her voice soft and pleasant. Anthony glanced up, ready to give a casual response, but then his eyes fell on something that made his heart skip a beat. There, on the young woman's finger, was a ring. Not just any ring, the ring. The same engagement ring he had given to Sophia 25 years ago. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. It couldn't be. It was impossible. And yet, there it was, sparkling under the soft light of the diner, as if mocking the years that had passed. The waitress, noticing his sudden shift in demeanor, furrowed her brow. "Are you okay, sir?" she asked, her smile fading slightly. Anthony cleared his throat, trying to gather his composure. "That ring?" he started, his voice barely above a whisper. "Where did you get that ring?" The waitress blinked, clearly caught off guard by the question. She glanced down at her hand, then back at him. "Oh, this. It's been in my family for as long as I can remember. My mom gave it to me before she passed away." Anthony's heart pounded in his chest. He struggled to maintain his calm, but his mind was already reeling with possibilities. "Your mother, do you know where she got it?" he asked, his voice more urgent than he intended. The waitress, Marianne, as her name tag read, shrugged lightly. "I never knew my mom well. She died when I was young, and my grandmother raised me. All I know is that it was one of the few things she left behind for me." Anthony leaned back in his seat, trying to process what he had just heard. Could it be possible? Could this girl be connected to Sophia in some way? The ring was too unique, too personal, to be a coincidence. It had to be the same one. But if that was true, what had happened to Sophia all those years ago? And how did this young woman, who couldn't have been more than 25, come to possess the very symbol of the love he had shared with Sophia? His thoughts spiraled. Could Marianne? No, it was too far-fetched. And yet, deep down, Anthony felt a nagging suspicion that there was more to this than mere coincidence. I see, Anthony managed to say, though his mind was far from at ease. "I'm sorry for asking, it just looked familiar." Marianne smiled again, though it was more tentative this time. "No worries. People ask about it sometimes. It's a bit old-fashioned, I guess." Anthony nodded absent-mindedly. His appetite was gone, replaced by a gnawing need for answers. He paid for his meal, leaving a generous tip, but his mind was already racing with what his next move should be. As he stepped out into the cool evening air, the weight of the revelation hung heavy on his shoulders. The ring was the key, he was certain of it. It was the only link he had to Sophia after all these years. But what did it mean that Marianne had it? Who was she, really? And what had happened to Sophia? His mind drifted back to the private investigator he had worked with all those years ago when he had desperately tried to find Sophia after her disappearance. Thomas Miller. Perhaps it was time to reach out again, to open the investigation he had once closed in despair. With a deep breath, Anthony pulled out his phone and dialed the familiar number. If there were any answers to be found, Thomas would be the one to help him find them. As the phone rang, Anthony knew one thing for certain. This discovery was about to turn his entire world upside down. Anthony Caldwell paced back and forth in his spacious, modern office, the skyline of New York City glittering beyond the large glass windows. His mind was racing, unable to focus on anything but the mystery that had resurfaced after all these years. The image of the ring on Marianne's finger had been burned into his memory, and with each passing hour, his need for answers grew stronger. It had been a day since he called Thomas Miller, the private investigator who had once helped him search for Sophia. Back then, they had hit dead ends, and Anthony had been forced to let go, at least publicly. But in his heart, the search had never really stopped. And now, here he was again, reopening old wounds. The phone on his desk buzzed, breaking his train of thought. He rushed over, snatching it up. "Thomas?" he asked, his voice tight with anticipation. "Anthony, it's me," came the deep, steady voice on the other end of the line. "I've got some initial information for you. It's not much, but it's a start." "Go on," Anthony urged, gripping the phone tightly. "I looked into the girl. Marianne, was it? She's clean. No criminal record, no hidden ties to anything suspicious. Just an ordinary young woman working in that diner. But I found something interesting when I dug into her family. Her mother, who passed away when she was young, is listed as Sophia Williams." Anthony felt his heart skip a beat. Sophia. That's her. That's the name she used when we first met. "I thought it might be," Thomas said, his tone grave. "But here's where things get strange. There are no official records of Sophia Williams before about 26 years ago. It's like she just appeared out of nowhere. No birth certificate, no school records, nothing. And right around the time Marianne was born, she disappeared again, like she was trying to stay off the radar." Anthony swallowed hard. Sophia had always been secretive about her past, but he had never pushed her. He loved her too much to pry into what she wasn't ready to share. Now he regretted that decision. If only he had asked more questions. Maybe he wouldn't be standing here, lost in a maze of half-truths and long-buried secrets. Do you think Marianne could be my daughter?" The words tumbled out before he could stop them, the possibility both exhilarating and terrifying. "I can't say for sure," Thomas replied carefully. "But the timing lines up. Marianne is about 25 years old, which would match up with the time Sophia disappeared. If she's your daughter, Sophia kept it from you. But we'll need more proof before we jump to conclusions." Anthony's head spun with the implications. My daughter? He had spent the last 25 years alone, burying himself in his work to cope with the loss of Sophia. The idea that he had a daughter out there, one he had never known, was almost too much to process. "I need answers, Thomas," Anthony said, his voice strained. "If Marianne is my daughter, if Sophia hid her from me all these years, I need to know why. And I need to know what happened to Sophia. She disappeared without a trace, and now I find out she's dead. What does it all mean?" "I'll keep digging," Thomas promised. "But there's one more thing. You remember Gerald Morgan, right?" Anthony's grip on the phone tightened at the mention of the name. Gerald Morgan, his former business rival, a man who had made it his mission to sabotage Anthony's success at every turn. Their competition had been fierce, and there had been no love lost between them. But Anthony hadn't thought about Gerald in years. What could he have to do with this? "Of course, I remember him," Anthony said, his voice cold. "What about him?" "Well, Gerald seems to have crossed paths with Sophia before she disappeared. I don't have all the details yet, but it looks like he might have been involved in whatever happened to her. It's possible that Sophia was running from something or someone, and Gerald was part of it. Anthony's blood ran cold. Could it really be that simple? Had Gerald, in his ruthless pursuit of power, done something to Sophia? The pieces were starting to fall into place, but the picture they formed was even darker than Anthony had imagined. "Find out everything you can about Gerald," Anthony ordered. "I want to know what he did, and I want proof." "I'll get to work on it," Thomas replied. "But be careful, Anthony. If Gerald really is involved, he's dangerous. He's not the kind of man to leave loose ends." Anthony hung up the phone, his mind buzzing with the revelations. The world he had built for himself, his career, his success, suddenly felt fragile in the face of this new information. If Gerald had hurt Sophia, if he had taken her from Anthony and kept her hidden all these years, there would be consequences. Anthony would make sure of that. But first, he needed to confirm the truth about Marianne. Was she really his daughter? And if so, how could he ever explain to her the secrets that had been buried for so long? Anthony sat back in his chair, staring out at the city skyline, his thoughts heavy. The investigation had begun, but the answers were still far from clear. One thing was certain: his life was about to change forever. Anthony sat in his office the next morning, his mind still racing from the conversation with Thomas. He had hardly slept, his thoughts consumed by the idea that Marianne might be his daughter, and that Sophia's disappearance could be tied to Gerald Morgan. The possibility that he had unknowingly been a father for 25 years weighed heavily on him, stirring a mix of regret, anger, and confusion. His phone buzzed, and he answered it immediately. "Thomas." "Yes, it's me," Thomas replied. "I've found more information, and I think you need to hear it." "Go on," Anthony said, leaning forward in his chair. "I managed to dig deeper into Gerald Morgan's dealings around the time Sophia disappeared. It wasn't easy, but I found some old connections that suggest Gerald might have been running something much bigger than we thought. I believe he was involved in some illegal activities, and Sophia got caught up in it. I can't say exactly how, but I'm starting to see a pattern. It looks like Gerald wanted to use Sophia as leverage against you, possibly to manipulate you into some kind of business deal or to sabotage your reputation." Anthony felt a cold shiver run down his spine. "Are you saying Gerald had something to do with Sophia's disappearance, that he might have taken her?" "It's possible," Thomas said carefully. "But what's more interesting is what I found about Marianne. There's no official birth record tying her to anyone but Sophia. She was listed as being born in a small-town hospital under the name Mary Ann Williams. But get this, the date of birth matches up perfectly with when Sophia left you." Anthony's heart raced. "So you're telling me that Mary Ann could very well be my daughter?" "Yes, Anthony, I think it's highly likely," Thomas confirmed. "Sophia disappeared right after she got pregnant. She could have been hiding Marianne from you, maybe out of fear, or maybe because Gerald was threatening her. We don't know yet, but there's a strong chance that Marianne is yours." Anthony leaned back in his chair, trying to process the information. The idea that he had missed out on 25 years of his daughter's life hit him like a freight train. He had never imagined that Sophia could have been pregnant when she left. It explained why she might have wanted to disappear, but it also raised so many painful questions. Why wouldn't she have told me? Anthony wondered aloud. Why keep this from me? I loved her. I would have done anything to protect them both. Maybe she was trying to protect you, Thomas suggested. If Gerald was involved, she could have feared for your safety or for Mary Ann's. We still don't know the full picture, but I think Sophia was in deeper trouble than we realized. And I'm afraid Gerald might not be done yet. Anthony's thoughts swirled. He felt a deep need to protect Mary Ann, even though she didn't know the truth yet. I need to tell her, Anthony said, determination settling in his voice. She deserves to know who I am, who her mother really was. You should be careful how you approach her, Thomas warned. And this is going to be a shock, and if Gerald finds out you're digging around in the past, he could try to stop you. I don't care, Anthony replied firmly. I've already lost too much time. I can't let her live without knowing the truth. I owe her that much." Anthony hung up the phone and stared out at the skyline again. He knew that once he told Marianne the truth, there would be no turning back. She might hate him for not being there, for not knowing sooner, but he had to take that risk. He couldn't bear the thought of her going through life without knowing who she really was. That evening, Anthony drove to the diner where Marianne worked. The sun was setting, casting a soft golden light over the quiet street. He parked his car and sat for a moment, gathering his thoughts. This was going to be one of the hardest conversations of his life, but it had to be done. When he entered the diner, Marianne was there, cleaning up after the last of the evening rush. She looked up as the doorbell jingled and smiled politely when she saw him. "Back again. You really like our coffee, huh?" Anthony smiled weakly, feeling the weight of what he was about to say pressing on his chest. "Actually, I came to talk to you." Marianne noticed the seriousness in his tone and furrowed her brow. "Is everything okay?" He gestured to an empty booth. Do you have a minute? There's something I need to tell you." Marianne hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She wiped her hands on a towel and sat down across from him. "What's going on?" Anthony took a deep breath. "This is going to sound strange, but I need you to hear me out. That ring you wear, it belonged to someone I loved very much. Her name was Sophia." Marianne's eyes widened slightly. "Sophia? My mother's name was Sophia." Anthony nodded. "I know. I believe your mother was the same Sophia I was in love with 25 years ago. And I believe that you might be my daughter." The words hung in the air between them, and Marianne stared at him in stunned silence. The shock and disbelief were clear on her face. "My daughter?" she repeated, almost as if testing the words out. "What do you mean? How could you be my father?" Anthony leaned forward, his voice soft but full of emotion. "I loved your mother. We were going to get married, but then she disappeared without a trace. I've spent years trying to find out what happened to her. And now I find out that you were born right around the time she left. I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know. But I think you're my daughter, Marianne." Marianne stared at him, her mind racing as she tried to process the bombshell that had just been dropped on her life. Marianne sat frozen, her eyes locked on Anthony's as the weight of his words settled over her. The diner felt impossibly still, as though time had slowed down. She couldn't seem to form a coherent thought. Her entire life had been turned upside down in the span of a few sentences. "Your daughter?" she repeated, still grappling with the impossibility of it all. "How could that be? My mom she never mentioned you. Not once." Anthony swallowed hard, feeling the guilt settle in his chest. He had anticipated this reaction. He had known that this would be shocking and painful for her, but hearing her confusion and disbelief hit him harder than he expected. "I didn't know," Anthony said gently. "I swear, if I had known about you, I would have been there. I would have done everything to be a part of your life. But your mother, she left suddenly. I didn't know she was pregnant. She never gave me the chance." Marianne shook her head, her fingers playing nervously with the edge of her apron. "But why? Why wouldn't she have told you? She was my mom. She didn't have any reason to keep something like that a secret, right?" Anthony leaned forward, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know why, Marianne, but I think she was trying to protect you. From something. Someone. There's more to this than I realized, and I'm only just starting to put the pieces together. Your mother. She might have been running from something dangerous." Marianne's eyes filled with confusion and a hint of anger. "Dangerous? What are you talking about?" Anthony sighed, rubbing his hand over his face as he struggled to explain. "Your mother and I were in love. We were going to get married, but I had a business rival, a man named Gerald Morgan. He's a dangerous man, Marianne. He and I clashed a lot, and I think I think he might have done something to your mother. Something to make her disappear." Marianne blinked, trying to make sense of everything. The idea that her mother had been caught up in something so dark and dangerous was almost impossible to believe. Her mother had always been so quiet, so ordinary, a simple woman who had lived a modest life, at least according to the stories her grandmother had told her. "You think this Gerald guy hurt my mom?" Marianne asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know for sure yet," Anthony admitted, "but I have reasons to believe he was involved in her disappearance. And now that I've found you, I'm starting to think that maybe she left to protect both of you. Maybe she was trying to keep you safe from him." Marianne stared at him, her mind reeling. The room felt too small, the walls closing in as the reality of the situation overwhelmed her. Everything she thought she knew about her mother, about her life, suddenly seemed like a lie. How could her mother have kept something so huge from her? And now, this man, this stranger, was telling her that he was her father. She stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "I need some air," she muttered, heading for the door. Anthony quickly stood up, panic rising in his chest. "Marianne, wait!" But she was already outside, the cool evening air hitting her like a slap. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to steady her breathing. Everything felt too overwhelming, too fast. She wasn't sure what to believe anymore. Anthony followed her outside, stopping a few feet away, unsure of how close to stand. He didn't want to push her, but he couldn't just leave things like this. "I know this is a lot," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "And I know it doesn't make sense right now, but I want to get to the truth. I want to know what happened to your mother, and I want to get to know you, if you'll let me." Marianne closed her eyes, trying to block out the noise in her head. How was she supposed to respond to something like this? She had spent her entire life wondering who her father was, why he had never been there. And now, after all these years, the answer had appeared out of nowhere, bringing with it even more questions and uncertainty. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I can believe this." "I understand," Anthony said softly. "I don't expect you to trust me right away, but I have proof, Marianne. I can show you everything. The timelines match up. I was with your mother before she disappeared. She never told me she was pregnant, but if she had, I would have been there for her, and for you." Marianne turned to face him, her eyes searching his for any hint of deception. She wanted to be angry, to push him away, but there was something in his voice, something in the way he looked at her, that made her pause. "What kind of proof?" she asked, her voice still shaky. Anthony nodded, relieved that she was at least willing to hear him out. "I have photos of your mother and me. Letters, and the ring." Marianne's hand instinctively went to the ring on her finger, the one thing her mother had left her. She had always wondered why her mom had been so insistent that she keep it safe. Now, it seemed like the ring held more secrets than she had ever imagined. "I'll show you everything," Anthony promised. "I just want a chance to explain, to tell you the truth." Marianne stood there for a long moment, torn between her desire to run and her curiosity to know more. Finally, she gave a small nod, though her expression remained guarded. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll listen." Anthony exhaled, feeling a weight lift off his chest. It wasn't a resolution, not yet, but it was a start. The next day, Anthony sat in his office, going over the evidence he had gathered over the years, letters from Sophia, photographs of the two of them together, and the few remaining mementos from their time in love. He had planned to show them to Marianne that evening, hoping that the tangible proof would help her accept the truth about their connection. But as he stared at the items in front of him, his phone rang. It was Thomas Miller again, his trusted investigator. "Anthony, I've uncovered more about Gerald Morgan," Thomas said, his tone urgent. Anthony's heartbeat quickened. He had been waiting for this. "What did you find?" Thomas took a deep breath before diving into the details. I've been digging into Gerald's business dealings during the time Sophia disappeared. It's worse than we thought. Gerald wasn't just trying to undermine your business. He was involved in some serious criminal activity. Money laundering, blackmail, you name it. He was running operations under the radar. And I think Sophia got caught up in it somehow. Anthony clenched his jaw. He had always known that Gerald was ruthless, but he had no idea the man had crossed into such dark territory. Do you think Gerald took Sophia to keep her quiet? Not just that, Thomas replied. There's more. I found a witness, someone who used to work for Gerald. He's willing to testify that Gerald had Sophia watched and followed for months before she disappeared. It seems like Gerald knew about her relationship with you, and he saw her as a way to get to you. He wanted leverage, Anthony. If he couldn't beat you in business, he was going to break you personally. Anthony's blood ran cold. The idea that Sophia had been used as a pawn in Gerald's twisted game was almost too much to bear. And Marianne? He asked, his voice tight with anger. Was she part of Gerald's plan too? I'm not sure, Thomas admitted. But it's possible. If Sophia was pregnant when she disappeared, and Gerald knew about it, he might have used that information against her. It would explain why she never told you about the baby. She was trying to protect your daughter from him. Anthony stood up from his desk, pacing the room as he tried to control the wave of emotions crashing over him. Anger, guilt, regret, they all swirled together, making it hard for him to think straight. If what Thomas was saying was true, then Gerald had been responsible for tearing his family apart for all these years. And now, Gerald was still out there, free to continue his manipulations. What can we do? Anthony asked, his voice laced with determination. We need to stop him. If he did this to Sophia, if he's been manipulating everything from the shadows, he needs to pay for it. Thomas was silent for a moment before answering. We're going to need solid evidence to bring him down. The witness is a start, but it's not enough. We need to gather more proof. Documents, records, anything that ties Gerald to Sophia's disappearance and his criminal dealings. And we need to do it carefully. Gerald is still a powerful man, and if he gets wind of what we're doing, he'll do everything in his power to stop us. Anthony nodded, his jaw set in grim determination. I'll do whatever it takes. I won't let him get away with this. But as soon as he said the words, a new fear crept into his mind. If Gerald had targeted Sophia all those years ago, what was to stop him from going after Marianne now? If Gerald found out that Marianne was Anthony's daughter, she could become a target as well. I need to protect Marianne, Anthony said, more to himself than to Thomas. I was just about to suggest the same thing, Thomas replied. Keep her close and don't let her out of your sight. If Gerald is as ruthless as we suspect, she could be in danger. Anthony hung up the phone, his mind racing. He had to tell Marianne the truth about Gerald. She needed to know that the man who had torn their family apart was still out there, and that he might come after her next. But how could he tell her that after just revealing that he was her father? It was too much to drop on her all at once. That evening, when Marianne arrived at his apartment, Anthony tried to remain calm. He greeted her with a warm but hesitant smile, offering her a seat. She still seemed guarded, unsure of how to navigate this new relationship between them. I'm glad you came, Anthony said, sitting across from her. I know this has been a lot to take in. Marianne nodded slowly. Yeah, I still don't really know what to think. It's hard to wrap my head around all of this. I understand, Anthony said softly, but there's something else you need to know. Something about Gerald Morgan. Marianne's brow furrowed. Gerald Morgan? Who is that? Anthony sighed, steeling himself for what he was about to say. He's a man I had business dealings with a long time ago, but he's more than that. I have reason to believe that he's the reason your mother disappeared. He may have been involved in something criminal, and she got caught up in it. Marianne's eyes widened in disbelief. What? You think he did something to my mom? I don't know for sure, Anthony said, his voice tense. But I'm going to find out, and I need you to be careful. If he finds out who you are, you could be in danger too. Marianne shook her head, trying to make sense of it all. This doesn't make any sense. Why would someone go after my mom like that? Because Gerald saw her as a way to hurt me, Anthony explained. And if he knows about you, he might try to do the same thing. Marianne stared at him, the weight of everything settling over her. Her entire life had been built on secrets and lies. And now, the danger she had never known existed was suddenly very real. What do we do now? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Anthony reached across the table, taking her hand gently. We stick together. I'm going to make sure nothing happens to you, Marianne. I've lost too much already. I won't lose you too. The tension between Anthony and Marianne hung in the air as they sat together in his apartment. The weight of the revelations was sinking in for both of them, but it was clear that the journey ahead was going to be dangerous. Gerald Morgan was not the kind of man who would allow his past crimes to be exposed without a fight. As much as Anthony wanted to protect Marianne, he knew they couldn't avoid confronting Gerald forever. We need a plan, Anthony said, breaking the silence. I can't just sit around and wait for him to make the next move. We need to gather more evidence, something that will expose him completely. Marianne, still processing everything, nodded slowly. But what about me? What am I supposed to do? You need to stay safe, Anthony said firmly. Gerald doesn't know about you yet, as far as we can tell. But if he finds out, you could become his next target. I need you to be careful, to keep a low profile until we can figure this out. Marianne's expression hardened. I'm not going to just sit around and do nothing. This is about my mom, too. I need to know what happened to her. And if this Gerald guy is responsible, then I want to help take him down. Anthony admired her determination, but he couldn't shake the fear that something could happen to her. She was his daughter. He had already lost Sophia, and he couldn't bear the thought of losing Marianne too. I get it, he said softly. You have every right to be involved, but we have to be smart about this. We're dealing with a dangerous man. Marianne crossed her arms, clearly frustrated but understanding the gravity of the situation. Okay, so what's the plan? How do we find the evidence we need? Anthony leaned forward, running a hand through his hair as he thought. Thomas is already working on gathering more information. He's looking into Gerald's business dealings, trying to find anything that links him to criminal activity. We need solid proof that ties him to Sophia's disappearance, and if we can get that, we'll have enough to expose him publicly. But where does that leave me? Marianne asked. I don't want to be sidelined. Anthony took a deep breath, weighing his options. You can help. There are records, files. Gerald is careful, but he's not invincible. I'm going to need access to some of his properties, places where I believe he kept his dealings hidden. If we can find anything there, it might be the key to bringing him down. Marianne raised an eyebrow. Are you asking me to break into places with you? Anthony gave a half smile. Not exactly, but I might need your help getting inside without raising suspicion. A small laugh escaped Marianne, though it was tinged with disbelief. So, what? You think I can just stroll into one of his offices? Not exactly, Anthony said, but Gerald has people working for him who might not be as loyal as he thinks. If we can find someone willing to help us, we can get what we need without having to kick down any doors. Marianne considered it for a moment, then nodded. Okay, I'm in. What's next? Anthony was both relieved and apprehensive. He knew he couldn't keep Marianne out of it. This was her fight as much as his. But the thought of putting her in any kind of danger gnawed at him. Still, they had no choice but to move forward. That's where Thomas comes in, Anthony explained. He's following a lead on one of Gerald's former associates, someone who might be willing to talk. If we can convince him to cooperate, we'll have a way in. The doorbell rang just as Anthony finished speaking, and Marianne jumped slightly, her nerves on edge from the intensity of the situation. Anthony stood up and moved toward the door, checking through the peephole before opening it. Thomas Miller walked in, his expression serious. "I've got something," he said, his voice low and urgent. "What did you find?" Anthony asked, motioning for Thomas to sit down. Thomas sat at the table, pulling out a folder filled with documents. "I've been tracking down one of Gerald's old business partners, Edward Benson. He was involved in some of Gerald's more questionable deals, and I think he might be our way in." Anthony glanced at the folder, flipping through the pages. "Do you think he'll talk?" Thomas nodded. "He's been out of the game for a while. He had a falling out with Gerald years ago, and from what I've heard, he's not too keen on keeping Gerald's secrets anymore. If we approach him the right way, I think we can get him to cooperate." Mary Ann, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. "How do we approach him? What do we say?" Thomas looked at her, his expression softening slightly. "We offer him protection. If he helps us, we'll make sure Gerald can't retaliate. And in return, he gives us everything he knows, records, transactions, anything that ties Gerald to illegal activities." Anthony considered the plan, his mind racing with possibilities. It was risky, but it was the best shot they had at bringing Gerald down. If Edward Benson was willing to cooperate, they could finally get the evidence they needed. "Let's do it," Anthony said firmly. "We'll meet with Benson, get the information, and use it to bring Gerald down. This ends now." Mary Ann looked between Anthony and Thomas, her determination renewed. "I'm ready," she said. "Whatever it takes." Anthony met her gaze, feeling a swell of pride. She was strong, just like her mother. And together, they were going to make sure Gerald Morgan paid for everything he had done. A cold wind swept through the streets as Anthony and Mary Ann waited in the car, parked just a few blocks away from an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was a quiet, desolate area, the kind of place where people could conduct business without being noticed. The warehouse was where they were set to meet Edward Benson, Gerald Morgan's former associate. The plan was simple: get him to talk, gather the evidence, and bring Gerald down. But the atmosphere was tense. Anthony could feel it. There was a lot riding on this meeting, and he knew it wasn't without risks. Benson might not be as cooperative as they hoped, and even if he was, there was no guarantee Gerald wouldn't find out what they were up to. Sitting beside him, Mary Ann stared out the window, her fingers nervously tapping against her leg. She had been quiet since they left Anthony's apartment, her mind clearly still processing everything that had happened in the past few days. The revelation about her mother, the danger Gerald posed, and now this, meeting a man who could help them but might also bring more trouble. "You okay?" Anthony asked softly, turning to look at her. Mary Ann glanced at him, offering a small nod. "Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around all of this. It feels like my life was one thing yesterday, and now it's something completely different." "I know," Anthony said, his voice gentle. "It's a lot to take in, but we're going to get through this. We'll get the truth, and we'll make sure Gerald pays for what he's done." Mary Ann smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I just can't believe someone like him had that kind of power over my mom. Over us. It's like my whole life was built on lies." Anthony wanted to comfort her, to tell her that everything would be okay, but he couldn't make promises, not when they were dealing with a man like Gerald. Instead, he reached over and squeezed her hand gently. "No more lies. We'll make sure of that." Before they could continue, a knock on the car window startled them both. It was Thomas, who had been scoping out the area to make sure everything was safe. Anthony rolled down the window, and Thomas leaned in. "Benson's here," Thomas said quietly. "He's waiting inside. It looks clear, but we need to be careful. He's skittish, and we don't want to spook him." Anthony nodded, feeling the tension in his body tighten. "Let's do this." They stepped out of the car, Mary Ann close behind, and made their way toward the warehouse. The building loomed large and empty, its windows covered in grime. The sound of their footsteps echoed against the concrete floor as they entered the dimly lit space. In the center of the room stood Edward Benson. He was a wiry man in his 50s, with thinning hair and a nervous energy about him. His eyes darted around the room as if he were expecting someone to jump out at any moment. "You're Caldwell?" Benson asked, his voice shaky as he eyed Anthony. "That's right," Anthony said, keeping his tone calm. "This is my daughter, Marianne." Benson's eyes flicked to Marianne briefly before returning to Anthony. "I didn't sign up for a family reunion. What do you want from me?" "We need information," Anthony said, stepping closer. "You worked with Gerald Morgan. You know what he's done. We need the proof to bring him down." Benson shifted uneasily, glancing toward the exit. "You don't know what you're asking for. Gerald, he's not someone you mess with. If he finds out I talk to you, I'm a dead man." "We can protect you," Thomas interjected, stepping forward. "We've got connections. If you help us, we'll make sure you're safe. But we need that information, Edward. Without it, we can't stop him." Benson hesitated, his eyes narrowing as he considered their offer. It was clear he was scared of what Gerald might do to him if he cooperated. But there was also a glimmer of something else in his expression. Maybe it was the guilt he had been carrying all these years, the weight of knowing what Gerald had done and not doing anything to stop it. "You think you can stop him?" Benson asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We know we can," Anthony said, his voice steady. "But we need your help." Benson glanced at Marianne again, and something in her expression seemed to soften him. He took a deep breath, running a hand through his thinning hair before speaking again. "All right," he said, his voice resigned. "I'll help you. But you need to know what you're up against. Gerald's got his hands in everything: business, politics, law enforcement. If you take him down, he'll take a lot of people with him." "We're prepared for that," Thomas said firmly. "Just give us what we need." Benson reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small flash drive, holding it up for them to see. "This is what you're looking for. It's all here: documents, emails, financial records. Everything Gerald's been doing for the last 20 years. Anthony reached out and took the flash drive, feeling a surge of hope. This was it. This was the key to bringing Gerald down. But before he could say anything, a loud noise echoed through the warehouse, the sound of a door slamming open. Everyone froze. Benson's eyes widened in terror as he turned toward the sound. Oh no, he found us. Anthony's heart raced as he turned to see the silhouette of a man standing in the doorway. Even in the dim light, Anthony recognized him immediately: Gerald Morgan. "You think you can betray me, Edward?" Gerald's voice was cold and dripping with menace. "You think I wouldn't find out?" Marianne gasped, and Anthony instinctively stepped in front of her, shielding her from Gerald's gaze. The flash drive was clenched tightly in his hand, but now it felt like a ticking time bomb. The confrontation they had hoped to avoid had just arrived at their doorstep. The warehouse fell into a suffocating silence as Gerald Morgan stepped further into the room. His presence was like a dark cloud casting a shadow over everything. His cold, calculating eyes scanned the group, lingering on Anthony and Marianne, before finally settling on Edward Benson, who stood frozen in place, visibly trembling. "You're making a big mistake, Edward," Gerald hissed, his voice dripping with malice. "Did you really think you could just hand over information like that and walk away? You should have known better." Benson took a step back, his face pale. "I didn't have a choice, Gerald. They came to me. I didn't want to do this." Gerald chuckled darkly, shaking his head. "Oh, but you did have a choice, and you chose wrong. I don't forgive betrayal." Anthony clenched his fists, stepping forward to put himself between Gerald and the others. "Leave him alone, Gerald. This ends now." Gerald's gaze shifted to Anthony, and for a moment, the two men locked eyes. The years of rivalry, the unspoken hatred between them, hung in the air. Gerald smiled, a cold, lifeless smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Anthony Caldwell," he said slowly, almost savoring the name. "Still playing the hero, are we? After all these years, you still haven't learned how this game is played." "This isn't a game," Anthony shot back, his voice firm. "You destroyed lives, Gerald. You took Sophia away from me, and you've been manipulating everything for years. It's over." Gerald's expression remained calm, though there was a dangerous edge to his tone. "You don't know what you're talking about, Anthony. Sophia was nothing more than a pawn. I did what I had to do to keep my empire intact. You were in the way." Marianne, who had been silent up until now, stepped forward, her voice shaking with anger. "You took my mother from me. You ruined our lives. Why? Why would you do that?" Gerald's eyes flicked to her, and for the first time, a glimmer of recognition crossed his face. "Ah, so you're the daughter. I had heard rumors, but I didn't think it was true. Looks like Sophia left a little legacy behind after all." "You didn't answer my question," Marianne said, her voice growing stronger despite her fear. "Why did you take her? What did she ever do to you?" Gerald sighed, as if bored by the whole conversation. "She was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I needed leverage, and she was close enough to you and Anthony to be useful. That's all. Don't make it more sentimental than it is." Anthony felt a surge of rage at Gerald's cold dismissal of Sophia's life. He took another step forward, his voice low and dangerous. "You used her. You destroyed her life. And mine. And now you're going to pay for it." Gerald's smile vanished, and his expression hardened. "You think you can take me down, Anthony? With what? The word of a washed-up traitor like Benson?" He gestured dismissively to Edward, who was still frozen in fear. "I've been untouchable for years. I have people in my pocket that you couldn't even dream of." Anthony's hand tightened around the flash drive in his pocket, the evidence that could finally bring Gerald's empire crashing down. "This time, you're wrong," Anthony said. "We have everything we need to expose you." Gerald's eyes narrowed, and he took a step closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "I've destroyed men for less, Anthony. If you think a little piece of plastic is going to take me down, you're more foolish than I thought." But before Gerald could say anything else, Thomas stepped forward, his phone raised in his hand. "It's over, Gerald," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You've just confessed to everything, and I've recorded every word." For the first time, Gerald's expression faltered. His eyes widened slightly as he realized what had just happened. He looked around the room, as if searching for a way out, but there was none. "You," Gerald started, his voice filled with rage, but he was cut off by the sound of sirens in the distance. Thomas smirked. "I called the police before we came in. They'll be here any minute. And with this recording, and the evidence we have on that flash drive, there's no escaping this. You're done." Gerald's face twisted in anger, but he quickly composed himself. "This isn't over, Caldwell," he spat. "You think you've won, but you don't understand how deep this goes. You have no idea what you're up against." Anthony stared him down, his voice steady and unwavering. "Maybe not, but I know one thing. You'll never hurt anyone again." The warehouse door burst open, and police officers flooded in, weapons drawn. They surrounded Gerald, who raised his hand slowly, his expression a mixture of fury and resignation. "You'll pay for this, Anthony," Gerald snarled as the officers cuffed him. "I'll make sure of it." Anthony watched as Gerald was led away, his heart still pounding with adrenaline. The nightmare was finally over. The man who had stolen so much from him and his family was finally going to face justice. He turned to Marianne, who stood there, her eyes wide with disbelief. Is it really over?" she asked, her voice trembling. Anthony nodded, though he knew there was still a long road ahead. "It's over," he said softly. "He can't hurt us anymore." Marianne let out a shaky breath, the tension slowly leaving her body. I didn't think I didn't think we'd actually do it." "We did," Anthony said, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "We did it together." As they stood there, the weight of everything they had been through began to lift. It wasn't the end of their journey, but it was the beginning of a new chapter, one where they could finally move forward without the shadows of the past haunting them. The following days felt surreal. Gerald Morgan's arrest had made headlines, and the media had descended upon the story with the fervor of vultures. The downfall of a man so powerful and untouchable sent shockwaves through the business world, and the public devoured every detail of his crimes. For Anthony and Mary Ann, it felt like they were caught in the eye of a storm. Back at Anthony's apartment, the silence was a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding outside. Mary Ann sat by the window, watching the city below. The weight of everything that had happened still sat heavy on her chest. She had been thrust into a world she never asked for, a world of secrets, betrayals, and danger. And though Gerald was gone, the emotional toll lingered. Anthony walked into the room, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Mary Ann, who accepted it with a quiet, "Thanks," though her eyes remained fixed on the cityscape. "You've been quiet," Anthony said gently, sitting down across from her. He studied her face, seeing the fatigue and uncertainty in her expression. It pained him to see her like this, knowing that the answers she had sought about her past had come at such a high cost. Mary Ann sighed, taking a slow sip of her coffee before speaking. "It just doesn't feel real yet, you know? I spent my whole life wondering who my father was, and then, when I finally find out, it's in the middle of this huge mess. Gerald, my mom, it's all so overwhelming." "I know," Anthony said, his voice soft. "I wish things had been different. I wish I had been there for you from the start, but I didn't know." Mary Ann looked at him, her eyes searching his face. "Do you really think my mom was trying to protect me? All these years, I thought maybe she just didn't care enough to tell me about my father. But now, I don't know what to think." Anthony leaned forward, his heart heavy with the knowledge of all that had been lost. "I do believe she was trying to protect you. Your mother was brave, and I think she was caught in something far bigger than she could handle. But I know she loved you. She would have done anything to keep you safe, and maybe that meant keeping you away from me because she feared what Gerald might do." Mary Ann's gaze dropped to the floor, her emotions conflicted. "I just wish I could have asked her. I wish I could have had a chance to understand her." Anthony nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I know. There's so much I wish I could have said to her, too. But we have to hold on to the fact that, in the end, she did what she thought was best for you. And now, we can start over. We can move forward." Mary Ann looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the pain and hope that swirled within her. "But what does moving forward even look like for us? You're my father, but we barely know each other. How do we even begin to have a normal life after everything that's happened?" Anthony smiled softly, though there was sadness in his eyes. "We take it one step at a time. I don't expect things to be perfect right away. We've both been through a lot. But I want to get to know you, Mary Ann. I want to be the father I should have been from the beginning." Mary Ann took another sip of her coffee, letting his words sink in. The anger and confusion she had felt initially were still there, but they were starting to fade, replaced by a cautious desire to move forward. She had always dreamed of knowing who her father was, and now that she had the answer, she wasn't sure what to do with it. "Okay," she said quietly. "I want that too." Anthony smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through him. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of hope. The darkness that had hung over his life since Sophia's disappearance was finally lifting, and though the road ahead would be difficult, he knew they could face it together. The sound of Anthony's phone buzzing on the table broke the moment. He glanced at the screen and saw that it was Thomas. "I should take this," Anthony said, excusing himself from the room. He stepped into his office and answered the call. "Thomas, what's going on?" "I've been following up on some loose ends with Gerald's case," Thomas said, his voice serious. "There's something you should know." Anthony's heart sank slightly. He had hoped that with Gerald behind bars, the worst was over, but Thomas's tone suggested otherwise. "What is it?" "It seems Gerald had some offshore accounts we didn't know about. Money stashed away for a rainy day. He was planning to make a run for it if things ever went south, and I think he had contingencies in place. I don't know how deep this goes yet, but we can't assume that all of Gerald's allies are out of the picture." Anthony pinched the bridge of his nose, feeling the tension return. "So, there's still a threat?" "There might be," Thomas admitted. "We've got enough evidence to keep Gerald locked up, but some of his associates might try to finish what he started. I'm going to keep looking into it." "Thanks, Thomas," Anthony said, his voice weary. "Keep me updated." As he hung up the phone, Anthony leaned against the wall, the weight of everything pressing down on him once more. Gerald was behind bars, but the fight wasn't over. There were still shadows lurking in the background, and Anthony knew he would have to stay vigilant. When he returned to the living room, Marianne looked up at him expectantly. "What's wrong?" she asked, sensing the change in his demeanor. Anthony forced a smile, not wanting to worry her. "Nothing we can't handle. Just a few things we need to keep an eye on." Marianne studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, as long as we're in this together." "We are," Anthony said, his voice firm. "We're in this together, always." The days following Gerald's arrest were a whirlwind of media attention and legal proceedings. Anthony spent hours with his lawyers, making sure every detail of Gerald's criminal activities was fully exposed. The news networks had a field day with the story, broadcasting Gerald's fall from grace and the implications it had for the powerful figures connected to him. It seemed like every time Anthony turned on the TV, there was another headline about the case, and he couldn't help but feel both relief and exhaustion. For Marianne, it was a strange experience to suddenly be thrust into the public eye. The quiet, simple life she had known for so long had been replaced by a new reality, one where people recognized her on the street and whispered about her connection to Anthony Caldwell and the notorious Gerald Morgan. She wasn't used to the attention, and she found herself withdrawing more, struggling to adjust to her new world. One evening, as she sat on the couch in Anthony's apartment, flipping through the channels, she saw a news segment dedicated to her mother's story. They were showing old photos of Sophia, pictures Mary Ann had never seen before, her mother smiling, vibrant, full of life. It was strange to see these images of a woman she had known so intimately, but in ways that felt foreign to her now. Anthony walked into the room and noticed the TV. He hesitated for a moment, watching the screen as the anchor discussed Sophia's tragic disappearance and the shocking revelations that had come to light. Anthony's heart ached at the sight of Sophia's face. Even after all this time, he still felt the sharp pang of loss whenever he thought about her. "Turn it off," Marianne muttered, her voice thick with frustration. Anthony picked up the remote and switched off the TV, sitting down beside her. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know it's a lot to deal with." Marianne sighed, rubbing her temples. I don't know how to handle all of this. One minute, I'm working at a diner, living my life, and the next, I'm the daughter of a billionaire. My mom's in the news, and everyone's looking at me like I'm some kind of curiosity. Anthony reached out and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I get it. I never wanted this for you. I spent years hiding from the spotlight, trying to focus on my business, but it always finds a way to creep back in. Now, with everything that's happened, it feels like it's never going to end." Marianne leaned back, closing her eyes. "It's not just the attention. It's the fact that I never really knew her. All those stories people are telling about my mom, half of them don't even sound like the person I grew up with. It's like there's this whole other version of her that I never got to see." Anthony's heart sank. He had felt that same sense of loss over the years, wondering what had truly happened to Sophia during those final months before she disappeared. "Your mom was complicated," he said softly. "She had her secrets, but she was also strong. And she loved you. That much I know for sure." Marianne was quiet for a long time before she finally spoke again. Do you ever wonder what she would think of all this? I mean, if she were here? If she could see us now? Anthony smiled wistfully. I think she'd be proud of you. You're stronger than you realize, Marianne. You've faced so much, and you're still standing. That's something to be proud of. Marianne gave a small, sad smile in return. I just wish she were here to tell me that herself. The silence between them was heavy with the weight of everything unsaid. They both missed Sophia in different ways, but the pain was shared, a bond between father and daughter forged through loss and rediscovery. Before they could continue the conversation, Anthony's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, his brows furrowing when he saw it was Thomas. I need to take this, Anthony said, excusing himself as he stepped into the other room. Marianne watched him go, her thoughts swirling. She wanted to feel like she belonged in this new life. But every day felt like a struggle to reconcile her past with her present. The weight of the Caldwell name, the legacy she hadn't asked for, was heavy on her shoulders. In the other room, Anthony answered the call, his voice low. Thomas, what's going on? There's something you need to know, Thomas said, his voice tense. I've been looking into Gerald's offshore accounts, like I mentioned. We've tracked some movements, and it looks like one of his key associates, Victor Lang, is still trying to move funds out of the country. Anthony's grip on the phone tightened. So, the operation isn't completely shut down yet. Exactly. Gerald may be in jail, but his network isn't dead. Lang's trying to salvage what he can, and I think he's planning something big. You need to be careful, Anthony. They're desperate, and desperate people make dangerous moves. Anthony felt a chill run down his spine. He had thought that with Gerald behind bars, the threat was over, but it seemed that wasn't the case. What do you suggest we do? Keep your guard up. Don't let your daughter out of your sight. Lang and the others are probably aware of what's happening, and they might come after her to get back at you. Anthony's heart raced with the thought of Marianne being in danger again. He had already risked losing her once. He couldn't let that happen. I'll do whatever it takes to protect her, Anthony said, his voice steely with determination. I'll keep digging, Thomas assured him. But be ready for anything. After the call ended, Anthony stood in the silence of his office, his mind racing. He couldn't afford to let his guard down, not now. He needed to protect Marianne from the shadows that still lingered in their lives. As he walked back into the living room, Marianne looked up at him expectantly. She could tell something was wrong. What is it? Anthony hesitated for a moment before sitting down beside her. There's more we need to talk about. We're not out of the woods yet. Marianne sat quietly, her mind swirling with uncertainty as she processed Anthony's words. Not out of the woods yet. The idea that even after Gerald's arrest, there was still a lingering threat hanging over them felt suffocating. She had just begun to adjust to this new reality, finding out Anthony was her father, learning about her mother's past. And now it seemed like they were still in danger. What do you mean? Marianne finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Anthony took a deep breath and looked her in the eye. Thomas found out that Gerald's network isn't completely dismantled. One of his key associates, Victor Lang, is still trying to move money out of the country, and there's a chance they could try to use you as leverage against me. Marianne's heart pounded in her chest. So, I'm still a target. Anthony nodded slowly. It's possible. I don't want to scare you, but we have to be careful. I'm going to make sure Thomas keeps close tabs on Lang and anyone connected to him. I won't let anything happen to you. For a moment, the weight of everything threatened to crush her. She had spent years living a normal life, working at a diner, oblivious to the dark forces at play behind her mother's disappearance. Now, she was being dragged into a world of corporate espionage and criminal networks, and it was overwhelming. But as the fear settled in, something else began to take its place. Resolve. Mary Ann straightened her shoulders and met Anthony's gaze. We can't just sit here and wait for something bad to happen. We need to figure out what Lang is planning and stop him before he can do anything. Anthony's expression softened with a mixture of pride and concern. I admire your determination, but this is dangerous. I can't ask you to get involved in something that could put you at risk. I'm already involved, Mary Ann said firmly. I've been involved since the day I was born, even if I didn't know it. This isn't just about me or you, it's about my mom. I want to know the truth, and I want to stop these people from hurting anyone else. Anthony sighed, realizing that there was no point in arguing. She was right. This was her fight too, and she had every right to be part of it. Okay, he said, his voice calm but serious. We'll do this together, but we need to be smart. Thomas is looking into Lang's activities, and we'll work with him to find out what's going on. No reckless moves. Agreed? Mary Ann nodded, her resolve unwavering. Agreed. In the days that followed, Thomas provided them with updates on Victor Lang's movements. Lang was trying to move large sums of money to offshore accounts, presumably to fund whatever remnants of Gerald's network remained. It was clear that Lang was scrambling, trying to salvage what he could before it all fell apart. As Anthony and Mary Ann worked closely with Thomas, they began to uncover more about the connections Gerald had built over the years. Powerful people in politics, law enforcement, and business, all of whom had turned a blind eye to his crimes in exchange for favors. It was a web of corruption, and dismantling it would take time. But slowly, piece by piece, they began to unravel it. One evening, after a long day of reviewing documents and speaking with Thomas, Anthony and Mary Ann sat together in the living room, the weight of the investigation still hanging over them. But despite the tension, there was also a quiet sense of accomplishment. They were making progress. Mary Ann glanced at Anthony, her expression thoughtful. You know, I never imagined my life would turn out like this. It's been overwhelming, to say the least. Anthony chuckled softly, nodding. I never imagined this either. I always hoped I'd find you one day, but I never expected it to happen like this. She smiled at him, a genuine warmth in her eyes. I'm glad you did. Even with everything that's happened, I'm glad we found each other. Anthony felt a swell of emotion in his chest. For so long, he had lived with the regret of losing Sophia and the unknown of what had happened to her. Finding Mary Ann had been like finding a piece of Sophia again, and it had given him a new sense of purpose. I'm glad too, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I've missed so much of your life, but I'm grateful for the chance to make up for lost time. Mary Ann's smile widened. We've got plenty of time now, and I want to get to know you too. Not just as the man who's been fighting all these battles, but as my father. Anthony's heart swelled with a mix of pride and love. He had fought so hard to protect her, to bring justice for Sophia, and now he had the chance to build something real with his daughter. It wasn't going to be easy. There were still challenges ahead, and they weren't out of danger yet. But for the first time in years, Anthony felt like he had something worth fighting for. The sound of Anthony's phone buzzing on the coffee table interrupted the moment. He glanced at it and saw a message from Thomas. We got him. Lang's been arrested. It's over. Anthony let out a long breath, the tension finally starting to ease. He showed the message to Mary Ann, who read it and smiled in relief. It's over, Anthony said, his voice filled with both disbelief and gratitude. We did it. Mary Ann leaned back, feeling the weight lift from her shoulders. We did it, she echoed, a soft smile playing on her lips. For the first time in what felt like forever, they could breathe. The threat was gone. The people responsible for their pain were behind bars. And now, they had a chance to rebuild their lives, together. As they sat in the quiet of the evening, the future stretched out before them, full of possibilities. It wouldn't be perfect, and there would still be challenges, but they would face them side by side. For Anthony and Mary Ann, this was just the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter filled with hope, healing, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.